Broadcasting from Singapore and broadcasting all around the world. You're listening to the EdTech Chat Podcast, taking the pulse of educators from all over the globe and bringing what you need every week. Now, over to your host, Craig Kemp.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the EdTech Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Kemp, and I'm thrilled to have your support. This podcast is sponsored by Schoolbox. Schoolbox is an all-in-one learning management system, community portal, and engagement platform for K-12 schools all over the globe. Schoolbox makes your life easy with everything you need at the touch of a button all in one place, so your school can connect, communicate, and collaborate with parents, teachers, students, and your school community from one platform. Get connected at schoolbox.com.au. The links are in the description below. As I've shared before, I continue to work with the incredibly talented Mark Quinn to improve the final audio quality of this podcast. He has his own podcast production studio that provides editing and mastering services to content creators. To connect with Mark, please see the details in the podcast notes below. Last week, I talked about school culture and the important part it plays in developing a successful EdTech strategy. I hope you had the opportunity to listen and think about your school's culture and beliefs. If you haven't listened yet, go back and listen to last week's episode and spend some time thinking about your school culture and how EdTech fits within it. This week, I wanted you to think about how COVID has changed the way you do things as a teacher, leader, or company. There's so much negativity in this world today. I want you to think about the positive effects that COVID has had on education. More to the point, I want you to consider how you can help create what the new normal is for education. What impact can you have on developing the new normal, and what does that look like for you and your school? What changes can you make to develop and adapt education and educational technology for the better over the next 2 to 5 years? Think long term and think big. I look forward to hearing from you on social media with your responses. Thank you for your questions that you continue to send in. This week, I wanted to discuss one question from Sandy in Portland, Oregon, USA. She asked, how can I help my struggling teachers understand the value EdTech can have when their answer is always along the lines of, this is the way I've always done things. It's frustrating and makes me want to just give up on them. Help. Thank you for your question, Sandy. I feel your pain. Firstly, don't overthink it, because every school has them, and those people become part of my conversation and workshops I run on strategy and EdTech learning in schools. One of the most important things to remember is that all of us have our unique strengths and weaknesses. For some teachers, that area of weakness is technology and education, and unfortunately, that uncertainty often comes across as negativity and resistance. When we think about the way technology is infused and integrated into learning in our schools, we have to remember the conversations we have been having on the EdTech Chat podcast over the past few weeks, as it ultimately starts with culture and strategy. A culture that allows conversations like, this is the way I've always done things, is often negative and will always lead to negative conversations and behaviours as a result. One of the best things to do, in my opinion, is to open up classrooms and show them just how easy it is. If you convince one person to integrate one tool or idea, the rest is simple. When thinking about your teachers, think of the diffusion of innovation model. I've put a link in the podcast description for you to check it out. I use this graphic a lot to help people understand their people when developing a strategic plan for EdTech integration. I've worked with hundreds of schools in just about every corner of the globe, and every school has the same types of people. If your school doesn't have laggards or people that avoid trying new things, then I want to work there. Laggards normally make up about 10 to 15% of a workforce, and these are the people you're talking about, Sandy. These are your this is the way I've always done things people. When actively trying to change EdTech culture, these are the people that I avoid initially, because you will give them 10% of your time, but they'll take away 80% of your energy, and the success rate just isn't worth it. For that reason, I always start with the positive and easy movers and shakers, your innovators. They are the top 2 to 5% of people in your building that just get things done. They're the first to try new things, test things out, and maybe even make some mistakes along the way, but they don't need any convincing or support in your EdTech journey. Let them be, and if anything, bring them along with you as leaders to support others, because you can't do this alone. The people to target here, Sandy, are your early adopters and your early majority. Normally, these groups combined make up about 50% of your staff. These are people that are willing to try new things, but they need to see it in action first, or they need someone to help them and hold their hand on the journey. Invest your time here. For these people, I've always found that the teacher next door model is the best way to help them move and grow. Basically, the teacher next door model is where you learn from teachers at the same level as you. Often in schools, we put the experts in front of others and preach about what they should do. Unfortunately, this very rarely results in successful learning opportunities. What I've found is that it's best to have teachers of similar level teaching you. It basically works with the idea that if John in the classroom next door to me can do it, so can I. Have some early adopters or even some of your former laggards being the teachers of teachers, and have them share just how successful their journey has been. So to answer your question, Sandy, I think you should focus less on these energy-zapping laggards in your school and focus more on the people that are willing to learn, grow, and move, because eventually the laggards will have to move with you or they will have to move on. I hope your leadership team see it this way too, and if they don't, give them this podcast to listen to, and I'm always more than happy to have a conversation with them to help them and you make significant changes. A tool that's positively impacted the authentic and purposeful use of technology into classrooms and meeting rooms that I have worked in is Padlet. Padlet can be used by anyone at any time. With Padlet, you can create an online post-it board that you can share with any student, parent, or teacher that you want. Just give them the unique Padlet link. Padlet allows you to insert ideas anonymously or with your name. It's easy to use and super handy. Whoever has the Padlet board open on their device can see what's on it and what everyone is writing in real time. Padlet's my favorite piece of productivity software to support getting ideas and working with groups of people. I love using it with students, teachers, and parents to help collate and share ideas in a time-efficient manner. Now available in 29 languages, Padlet makes it easy to collaborate from anywhere around the globe. While I use the free version as an individual outside of a school, and it's great, the school plan gives you 30 days for free and then a pricing plan starting from $12 per teacher per month. It makes it super easy and secure for you to use for learning or any type of learning within your organization. It makes it easy and secure for you to use for learning of any type within your organization. I highly recommend that you take a look. The link is in the description below. Every week, I bring you a short interview with some of my edu heroes, an engaging learning experience with someone who makes a difference in education every day, with a particular focus or angle towards educational technology. This week, I had the pleasure of chatting with EdTech enthusiast, librarian, and accomplished author Jennifer Casa-Todd. Let's have a listen. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Jennifer Casa-Todd. You might know her as J Casa-Todd on Twitter with almost 20,000 followers, where she tweets daily inspiration for teacher librarians and anyone passionate about social media and technology integration. Jennifer is based in Ontario, Canada, and is an accomplished author and keynote speaker. Jennifer's book, LEADia, is a top seller and has been an important book within my toolkit over the past few years. Jennifer, it's an incredible pleasure to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk education and technology integration?
Absolutely. It's such an honor to be here with you, Craig. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Let's go. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
Sure. So I'm currently a teacher librarian at a Catholic high school, Cardinal Carter in Aurora, Canada, as you suggested, in the York Catholic District School Board. And I've been in that role for 4 years now, which is incredible to think about. Before that, I was the literacy consultant for the district. And what inspires me, honestly, is students. I know that when we set up conditions for learners to feel welcome and safe and supported, that students flourish and that learning happens authentically. And so I really try in my role to create a welcoming and safe space for students. We try to ensure that our students see themselves, not just in the collections and the artwork and in the experiences that they find there, but we want our space, and we've created a space that's inviting. It's playful. We have riddle of the day and games. It's comfortable, and it invites individual work and group collaboration. It feels like a microcosm for, what a place should be. I really, really love my role. Most importantly, we try to see every student and greet every student who walks in our doors, develop a relationship with them, which is sometimes a challenge because our school has about 1,450 kids. And we have about 600 kids visit daily, which is incredible. But I learn something new from students every day, and my relationships with them ground me and remind me of why we're here.
That's so cool. I just excited just listening to you talk about it because it sounds like a really great place to be, and it sounds like you really love doing what you do. So like on that sort of note, like what excites you about education today?
I think three things really: voice, choice, and connections. So when I came out of the classroom to work at the district level, I started to really reflect on my practices. And as much as I loved teaching English, which I did for 17 years, the class discussions that I loved so much, I recognized didn't always engage every student. They engaged some of the students who were the most vocal. And though I don't think that kids came away from my class not loving it or learning, I did reflect on the fact that technology allows us to give every student a voice in our classes. Like we can use a tool like Padlet or Pear Deck or Flipgrid or something like that, which will allow us to hear from the quiet students who we sometimes don't normally hear from. I also think technology and education today really is so much more about choice, or can be, than it was before. So I don't need to get 30 of the same assignment. I love the fact that I can offer choice and allow students to create something that they're really proud of, that they could use technology or perhaps project-based learning to take action on actual problems in the world and see themselves doing something. We had an incredible project around the Sustainable Development Goals, and our students, thought global and acted locally and actually created things in the school that made a difference. And so I think the fact that we can do that today is amazing. And finally, connections. I'm passionate about showing students how they can connect to others in the world to make the world a better place. And we have instantaneous access now to other classes, to other grade levels, to authors, to scientists, to artists. Never before have we had such incredible ways to both sustain our perspective and learn, and also interrupt our perspective and learn about other people and develop empathy for other people.
Yeah, I love what you've said there about voice and choice and connections, because I'm totally the same. I feel really passionately about student voice and allowing students to choose and use the technology to be more authentic and purposeful. And I talk a lot about that with the work that I do as well with teachers, is how can we make your classroom more engaging? But more importantly, how can you make your learning experiences more authentic and purposeful with the use of technology? Not just substituting what you do, but really redefining learning. And I think that's a really exciting.
Exactly. I was going to say, I think that's what's drawn you and I just commented before we started this podcast, you and I have never been on a panel or spoken together, but I feel like I've known you for years. And I feel we share that like-mindedness for sure.
Agreed. So, I mean, Jennifer, you've done a lot in the world of educational technology and social media and being engaged with people from all over the world. And I know that the listeners here today are just craving advice. What's your best advice for those educators in relation to educational technology?
That is a big question. I am going to say that when we consider technology-enabled learning, that we focus on the learning. And so we need to be very thoughtful about what it is that we're doing and why. I think I know me, like you're jumping to what's next, right? You could have like 1,000 new tools and they're flashy. And I sometimes do that. And then I reel myself back. And I think we should never start with a tool. We need to be thoughtful about what we want our students to know, understand, and be able to do. And then we need to use the best tool. And I love, this is quite dated, I think, but Bill Ferriter has a great graphic that I read in the Innovators Mindset by George Couros. And he has this list. It's a column. What do you want kids to do with technology? And he has a list of wrong answers and right answers. And although I wouldn't use the words wrong and right necessarily, I think that we don't necessarily, or we shouldn't say, I want my kids to start a blog or add to a Flipgrid or produce a green screen video. Like, that's not where we need to start. Where we need to start is we want our kids to raise awareness or join conversations or find answers to their questions. And then we use technology in order to accomplish that goal.
I love that too. I love that graphic as well. It's something that I've seen floating around about my professional learning network as well. And I think it's it's something that I'm pretty passionate about too. And it says in it, technology is a tool, not a learning outcome. And I think that's a really important piece that you pointed out. Tell us a little bit about sort of where we met, which is Twitter and social media, and tell us about your choice of professional learning networks. Where do you engage? And then for the listeners out there, who should they be connecting with? Where should they be finding like-minded connections?
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because for the most part, I began on Twitter, and I still do connect and do much of my learning from Twitter. But I've really expanded to Facebook and Instagram as well. So again, going back to this idea that the tool doesn't matter, it's following people who the criteria for me is I want someone who is going to inspire me, but may challenge me and is positive. And usually someone who's smarter than me, right? So the whole purpose of having a professional learning network is for you to learn and grow. And so I have made lifelong friends from my Twitter connections because they're people that initially I followed because they taught me something or they supported me. And then our relationship continued in various formats. So off Twitter to Voxer, for example. So who should you be connecting with? I'm going to give you groups of people instead. I work on the board for the ISTE Librarians Network. And so whether or not you're a librarian, I find so much learning and camaraderie with them, the ISTE Lib group on Twitter. I started long ago. My journey into technology began with a group called EduMatch. And Sarah Thomas, who's incredible, really just seeks to connect like-minded people. And from there, I've met so many other people. And I would definitely recommend that you check out EduMatch. The OGC, which is the Our Global Classroom folks, if you look at the hashtag OGC, Bronwyn Joyce, there I have met people from all over the world. And I think that's so important because you forget sometimes how you look at the world in such an egocentric kind of way, and then I'll have someone like my friend Eileen from Kuwait who says, well, actually, I remember this aha moment. Well, actually, here in Kuwait, we don't have Mother's Day and Father's Day. And I said, what? So, OGC is great because they're people from all over the world who can interrupt what it is that you think you know about things. And I think that's important sometimes. And I'm a Google Innovator. As of October of last year, I was part of the New York City cohort. And I've been a leader for the GEG Ontario, and GEGs exist all over the world. And if you're looking for somewhere to not just learn about Google tools, but to feel connected and supported, then you want to go to your GEG group. And that stands for Google Educator Group. And we have, like I said, they're all over the world.
Jennifer, point us to an EdTech tool that you currently love using in your day-to-day work that you think the listeners here today are really going to want to jump on board and start using.
Okay, that is another tough question because, again, if I'm going to choose a tool that's best for the learning, then it's going to be a variety. But I would say right now, I have rediscovered Padlet. I really, I love it for checking in with students. I love it for students. So I've used it where I say, share a GIF about how your week was. I have asked students to put in a research question and give feedback on one another. I've given students a provocation and asked them for their opinions, and then asked students to look at what other people are doing. We connected with a class in Israel, and we used Padlet because time zones prevented us from connecting in person. And we weren't quite, I love Flipgrid for the ability to do video, but we weren't quite there yet with our students. They didn't feel comfortable doing video. So we did a Padlet where some kids shared videos, but some kids shared images, and some kids just shared text. But we were able to have this amazing collaborative learning space that crossed a geographical border. So I would say Padlet.
That's cool. Yeah, I love Padlet as well. And unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to utilize it with my own class, but I've had the opportunity to share it with many other people. And I've just seen how powerful it is, even as an educator, to connect and engage and to share things amongst staff rooms and staff meetings, and to help with collaborative planning and all sorts of things. So I'm pleased you mentioned that. So Jennifer, that learning is really important to us, and I think you've highlighted that more than anything so far in our discussion. What's one book or resource that you've either been reading lately or just one of your all-time favorites that you think we should all be exploring?
Okay, this is again another loaded question because I'm a DBC author, and I am amazed by the number of high quality, amazing books that DBC puts out. And I am not being biased. I literally, any book that comes out by DBC, I know is going to be one that is passionately filled with stories, but also learning. And so I would say any DBC book, I know that's cheating. But one book that I've been reading lately, which is actually not a DBC book, is a book that is challenging me. I, right now in my educational journey, am exploring equity and the lens that I use sometimes with my students. And in particular, I mean, we're mostly a homogeneous school, so we don't have a whole lot of racial minorities in our school. So I'm really trying to be thoughtful about, what are some of the collections that I'm putting together for them? What am I offering? And am I being equitable? So along those lines, part of the ISTE Librarian PLN book study was to read a book called You Got This by Cornelius Minor. And it's really challenging some of my assumptions, but it's also quite readable. I'm listening to it on an audiobook, and I'm really enjoying that and the perspective and the thinking that's allowing me to have.
That's really cool. And you mentioned DBC a few times, just for those listening that might not know what that is. Can you just clarify what that is?
Yes, it's Dave Burgess Consulting. And so Dave Burgess is the author of Teach Like a Pirate, and he is also a publisher, my publisher. So
yeah, and I can't stress enough how amazing Dave is, and the set of books that he has sort of published and got together from some of the most incredible educators out there. So if you are listening and you're interested in getting some of the best reads you can, Dave Burgess Consulting Group, the publishing group, have a huge, phenomenal amount of books that would whet your appetite. And not only do you love engaging in reading, Jennifer, but I don't know how you find time to do it, but you also write. You're an author yourself, and you've written a book already, and I mentioned it in the intro, a book that I've loved reading and I've loved using with our teachers and using some of the ideas you talked about in our school. What inspired you to write Social LEADia, and why should we read it?
So Social LEADia was inspired by a series of experiences in my own life, including that with my daughter. And it was a point where I started to realize that we were looking at technology, but especially social media, in a negative way. We were sharing with kids what they shouldn't do. And what we weren't doing is opening up for them the possibility of what can be when we show them what they could do. And so Social LEADia is a book which celebrates students and their teachers who are using technology and social media to learn and share learning, to empower and celebrate others, and to make a positive difference in the world. It combines my own stories and experiences with those of other educators who I met, and provides almost a blueprint, ideas and examples for how you too can look at the use of technology and social media differently and leverage it, despite many, many obstacles. I also, I should mention that I have a podcast where I continue those conversations. So Social LEADia shines a light on students and the good work that they're doing. And in my podcast, I continue to interview mostly students as well as teachers who are, I call it celebrating awesome on and offline, who are truly awesome on and offline. And I have 2 upcoming books, actually. Raising Digital Leaders, which is also going to be published by Dave Burgess Consulting, is a parent companion to social media. So it's about helping parents to think about how they can engage with their children and technology in positive ways. And Aubrey Bright, Stories That Connect Us, is being published by EduMatch. And it's a children's story, which I co-authored with my friend Lee Castle. And it's a touching tale of a young girl as she discovers what connecting really looks like. It's about her and her relationship with her grandmother and how they use technology to bring them together. So it's really along the same lines as social media, but in the form of, which I think is a beautiful children's story. And we have a former student of mine who's brilliant, and she's the illustrator. So we're really excited about that too.
Wow. I don't know where you find the time, Jennifer, but that's just amazing. And I'm definitely going to go away and take a look at all of your stuff. So all the people that are out there listening that have caught one of your nuggets of wisdom and want to read a little bit more about you and want to catch into your books and just want to follow your amazing, inspiring tweets or whatever it is, what's the best way for them to follow and connect with you?
Thanks, Craig. You're so kind. Well, I blog weekly. I try to blog every Sunday. And so you can find my work at jcasatodd.com. And that will also connect you to my social media podcast, as well as the companion resources for social media. On Twitter and Instagram, my handle is at jcasatodd, CASATODD. You can certainly find me there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Jennifer.
Thank you, Craig. It's a pleasure.
Next week, join me for episode 13 of the EdTech Chat Podcast, when I'm joined by a global education superstar that takes action and is a huge role model of mine that I constantly look up to, Jennifer Williams. One of the things I love doing is giving away prizes, and thank you for tuning in, listening, and hopefully subscribing to the EdTech Chat Podcast. Last week, Schoolbox gave away 1 hour of free consultancy support to help you create a more seamless EdStack. To win, you needed to complete the form at bit.ly/edtechwin. The winner has already been contacted directly by me, and it is Elizabeth Moore. Congratulations, Elizabeth. This week, our sponsor Schoolbox is giving away another hour of free consultancy support to help you create a more seamless EdStack. This hour can be used however you want, so get entering. In addition, this week, Jennifer is giving away 2 copies of her book, Social LEADia, Moving Students from Digital Citizenship to Digital Leadership. To win the hour of consultancy support from Schoolbox and Jennifer's books, you need to go to bit.ly/edtechwin and complete the simple form. It'll take you less than a minute to complete. The link is in the description below. Competition closes on Wednesday the 29th of July, and the winners will be contacted directly by me and announced on next Friday's podcast episode. Good luck. If you enjoyed today's episode, please smash that subscribe button and share it with your colleagues, friends, and families. I really do appreciate your support. Please remember to spend 2 minutes to rate this podcast too, so we can reach even more educators and EdTech enthusiasts globally. Please share your favorite part of today's episode by tagging me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And don't hesitate to ask me questions that I can answer in an upcoming episode. Remember, you have the chance to win as well. Check out the links in the description below for more, and I'll see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the EdTech Chat Podcast, creating a community for educators to learn, share, and grow. If you liked today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and be in the drawing to win prizes every week. If you know others that would enjoy the show, please hit that share button and brighten their day. Join us again next week for your weekly EdTech Hit with @MrKempNZ. We'll see you again soon.